The King of the Golden Mountain. Once upon a time, there was a merchant. A merchant is someone who buys and sells things. He was very rich. One day, he put all his goods onto a boat. Goods are things that people buy and sell. Because he wanted to take them to a faraway land, to sell them and make a lot of money. But the boat sank. Sink means to go down under the water. And the merchant lost everything. He went from being very rich to being very poor. One day, as the poor man was walking outside, he met a dwarf. A dwarf is like a small man. Dwarves are magical. The dwarf asked him why he was sad. The merchant told the dwarf that he had lost all of his money. "I will give you lots of gold," said the dwarf. Gold is something that is worth a lot of money. But in 12 years' time, you must bring me the first thing that touches your leg when you go home tonight. The merchant thought that the first thing that would touch his leg would be his cat or his dog. So he said yes. But when he came home, his little son grabbed him by the leg. Then the merchant was very sad. But when the merchant went upstairs to check his chest was empty. A chest is a big box where you keep things. So the merchant thought that maybe it was all a dream. But 1 month later, when the merchant was looking for something upstairs, he saw the chest again, and this time the chest was full of money. The merchant was very happy, and he forgot all about his promise to the dwarf, and he used the money to go back into business. In 12 years, the merchant's son grew up, and one day, the merchant remembered the promise he had made to the dwarf, and he felt very sad. The boy asked his father why he was so sad, and the father told him about his promise and said that he must give the boy to the dwarf. But the boy told his father not to worry. The boy had a friend who was a fairy. A fairy is a small magical creature. At night, the fairy came to talk to the boy and told him everything he should do. The fairy told the boy to draw a circle on the ground, and the fairy said that the dwarf will not be able to come in to the circle. So the next day, the boy and his father went to meet the dwarf, and the son drew a circle, and he and his father sat in the middle of it. The dwarf came, but the dwarf could not enter the circle. The dwarf was very angry. "A promise is a promise," said the dwarf. "You must give the boy to me." "I will not come out," said the boy. They talked and talked for a long time, and at last they decided. The father would not give his son to the dwarf, but the father would have to put his son into a boat and push the boat out onto the sea. So the son got into the boat, and his father pushed him out onto the sea. But before the boy got far, a wave turned the boat over. The father and the dwarf were watching from the shore. The father thought his son had drowned. Drowned means to die in the water. The dwarf thought he had gotten his revenge. Both the dwarf and the father went away. But the boy had not drowned. The good fairy had been watching the boy, and the fairy rescued the boy from the bottom of the sea and brought him up to the surface again. The boy held onto the boat and was safe. He traveled in the sea for a long time until at last he came to land in an unknown place. In this place, there was a mountain made of gold. And on the golden mountain, there was a palace. A palace is a big castle where the king lives. The boy went into the palace, but it was empty. There was no one there. At last, in one of the rooms, the boy found a white snake. The white snake said to him, "I am really a princess. I was changed into a snake by magic. You can help me. Tonight, 12 men will come here. They will beat you." Beat means to hit and kick someone. You must not say anything or try to fight them. Let them beat you. If you do this for 3 nights, then I will turn back into a princess. That night, 12 men came, and they beat the boy. But he didn't fight them, and he didn't say anything. After 3 nights, the white snake changed back into a princess. The boy was almost dead by this time, but the princess used her powers to heal him. And then the boy and the princess fell in love and got married. And the boy became the king of the mountain, and the princess became the queen, and they had a son. 8 years later, the king of the Golden Mountain wanted to see his father again. He told the queen about his plan to visit his father. But the queen said, "Don't go. If you go, bad things will happen to us." But the king really wanted to see his father. So at last the queen said, "Okay, you can go. Take this ring. It's a magic wishing ring. Wherever you wish to go, the ring will bring you. But you must promise never to use the ring to bring me to your father's house." "I promise," said the king. The king took the ring and wished himself to the town where his father lived, and the ring brought him there. But when the king tried to go into the town, the guards would not let him in because his clothes were so strange. So the king had to change clothes with a farmer, and then the guards let him into the town. The king went to his father's house, and he said, "Father, I am your son." But his father said, "You are not my son. My son died 8 years ago." "No, it is me," said the son. I am still alive." But his father would not believe him. Finally, the king showed his father his arm. As a boy, he had always had a red mark on his arm. When the father saw the red mark, he knew it was his son. The next day, the king told him that he had married a princess and had had a son and was king of a golden mountain. "This cannot be true," said his father. "Look at your clothes. They are not king's clothes, but farmer's clothes." At this, the king became angry, and he forgot his promise to his wife. And he wished for his wife and son to be brought to his father's house. And his wife and son appeared. But his wife, the queen, was very angry because he had broken his promise. Later that day, while they were talking, the king felt very tired. He and the queen and his son laid down under a tree to rest. But while he was sleeping, the queen took his ring off of his finger, and the queen wished herself and her son back to the palace, leaving the king all alone. The king woke up and realized he was all alone. He didn't know what to do, but he decided to start walking until he got back to the Golden Mountain. While he was walking, the king came across 3 giants. A giant is someone who is very big. The 3 giants were arguing about their inheritance. An inheritance is something you get when your father dies. There were 3 things: magic boots that could take you wherever you wanted, a magic cloak that could make you invisible, and a magic sword. If you say, "Heads off," this sword could cut off the heads of your enemies. A cloak is a type of coat. Invisible means that no one can see you. The giants couldn't decide who should get which things. They were arguing and arguing. So the giants asked the king to help them decide. "I will help you," said the king. "But first, I need to hold the things so that I can better decide who should get them." So the giants gave him the magic boots and the magic cloak and the magic sword. The king put on the cloak and the boots and held the sword. And as soon as he had all three, he used the magic boots to wish himself back to his palace. When the king got back to his palace, he saw that there were many people there, and there was a big party. He asked what was happening, and the people there told him that the queen was going to marry another husband. The king put on the invisibility cloak so that no one could see him, and he went into the palace. In the palace, everyone was eating and drinking to celebrate the wedding. But the king stood next to the queen. Whenever the queen tried to eat something, he would move the food away. And whenever the queen tried to drink something, he would move the wine away. So the queen couldn't eat or drink anything. The queen became afraid, and she stood up and left the table and went back into her room to cry. "What is happening to me?"